What's up and welcome back to my channel, the best place to learn about mindset and motorcycle tips to get you confident and comfortable so you can live your best life. Now in today's video, we're going to be talking about how to overcome fear, what to do about it, how to identify it, how to deal with it, and how to push through it so that you can come out the other side unafraid and ready to handle anything. We all have fear. What makes the difference is what we choose to do about it when it's staring us in the face. So fear is a natural reaction. It's a biological reaction, really. A leftover from when we were running from saber-toothed tigers way back in the day. So fear has a very real purpose. It keeps our body safe in sketchy situations, but it also haunts us when we are trying to do something new and grow beyond the current version of ourselves. So you might already know that fear can be debilitating. It's designed to keep us safe in our comfort zone for as long as we are running and for as long as after we've stopped running from these real or perceived threats. So you might be wondering, what exactly is the difference between fear and anxiety? Are they the same thing? Well, fear is a response to stimuli in our physical environment or our emotional environment. It's going to have a very specific physiological response, so it's going to feel a specific way in our bodies, and that's going to be different for everyone. Whereas on the other hand, anxiety is more of a generalized state, and it can be even a mood that will persist long after the stimuli is removed. So fear is a temporary emotion, and you can think of it as something that comes up suddenly. It's going to be in the present moment in response to something that you're experiencing. Fear convinces us that being comfortable is better than being our best selves. After all, living to our full potential takes risk and self-awareness on a level that a lot of us are really uncomfortable with. So in short, fear lies to us and it keeps us small. But in reality, fear is really just that. It's F-E-A-R. And I want you to think of it as fake evidence appearing real. The reason we fear things is because we haven't done them yet. And doing something scary is unknown, and that is really tough. So this is what a lot of women experience when they first start riding motorcycles, or they even think about riding motorcycles. They are intrigued about riding and they want to feel and look like a badass. Who doesn't, let's be honest. And they want to feel respected because we don't always feel that way in a lot of other areas of our life. And they want to have something in their life that is completely theirs. And that was certainly the case with me. But fear gets in the way of this, and before you know it, we kind of retreat back to our comfort zone where we're confident and comfortable, and then we stay there. So that was me once too. I was afraid to start my life, explore my passions, start a business, become a coach, and really step into my power as my authentic self. And because I was afraid of that, I played small for a lot of my life. Pretty much up to a couple years ago when I started riding motorcycles and I started my business. So I've learned a few things along the way, and now that I'm a mindset coach, I want to share what I've learned with you. Okay, so let's jump into my favorite ways to overcome fear. Number 1, identify what it is that is making you feel afraid. The first thing we want to do is figure out why we're afraid in the first place. You might already have an idea of what that is, but sometimes the real reason or the reasons we think can actually be hiding beneath other things. And we might need to dig a little deeper for them. So some common reasons behind fear are we don't want to fail, we don't want to look silly, we don't want to outgrow our friends and family, we don't want to stand out or be seen doing something different. And we don't want to do something risky with our lives or with our time. So knowing why you feel afraid is an amazing starting point for overcoming your fear. Once we know why we're afraid, we can start to reframe our fear and use it to our advantage. Another thing to tune into is your response to this fear and how it feels in your body. So does your heart start beating faster? Do you get shaky hands? Maybe your eyes water, or maybe your thoughts start racing really fast. Or you kind of get like a chilled feeling all over. So knowing how this fear feels in your body is going to help you identify the fear so that you can start to use it productively instead of using it as a signal that you need to retreat and kind of go back and avoid those situations. For example, when I am in a growth zone and I start to sort of feel a little bit of friction and resistance to what I'm about to do, I get sweaty all over and I kind of feel a little panicky in my heart. And I'll have thoughts like, maybe I shouldn't do this, or I'm kind of scared, so let's go back and avoid this. Knowing why you feel afraid is an amazing starting point for overcoming your fear. Once we know why we're afraid, we can really start to work to reframe that fear and use it to our advantage. Number 2, use your fear to your advantage. Being scared of something can be an incredible sign that you are on the right track for what you want in life. If you are scared, it means that this activity or the action that you're about to do is new for you, which is great because it means you're growing. Instead of running from fear, try to lean into it and see what it is telling you. So to give you an example from my life, if you are afraid of failing, then that might suggest that you value perfectionism and that anything that can't be done perfectly shouldn't be done at all. So if that feels true for you, then you can even go a little deeper and try to shift your beliefs about what that means to show up in the world as someone who isn't right all of the time. So this is something that I do with my clients, and it's really amazing to see the transformations they make. It is such an incredible experience being their coach. It's wild. I love it. So to give you an example from my life, each year when riding season starts, I feel a little bit of fear about riding on the highway on day 1, even though I want to go fast and that's something that I really enjoy. So this fear shows up for me in the form of reluctance and racing thoughts, which is always a sign for me that I need to gradually ease back into riding. It's a signal that I need to practice. So instead of starting on the highway, I'll practice in parking lots for a couple days, initially, before I'm comfortable. And then once I'm comfortable and more confident, I'll start to take on bigger challenges. Leveraging fear to your advantage will reframe it from something to avoid to something that can be helpful and productive in your life. Now, overcoming fear is a muscle, and really we just need to learn to develop it. Once we do it enough times, it starts to get easier and easier. So the third thing, adopt a growth mindset. A growth mindset is a state of mind that says intelligence or knowledge can be developed no matter where your starting point is. It prioritizes learning instead of looking smart and being perfect. So this is really important when overcoming fear, because it means that we start to embrace challenges and then we push through these setbacks. We embrace learning from others, and we are willing and able to put in the effort required to start to overcome our fear so that we can actually grow and become better versions of ourselves. So sometimes when we're learning new things, fear starts to creep back in. Like when we finally started to start the business or embrace our creativity or even ride motorcycles. We'll say things to ourselves like, "Oh, I suck at this. No one will ever notice. I knew I wouldn't succeed anyway." Or my personal favorite that I used to say was, "It's pointless, so why even bother?" And I used to say that all the time. So these comments, they keep us stuck in a fixed mindset where we believe our talent and our knowledge is limited, that it's fixed. But the truth is that we are all powerful beyond our imagination, and we're way smarter than we give ourselves credit for. If only we knew what we were capable of. With the growth mindset, we begin to explore this potential and we really start to see what is possible and what we can create in our lives. A growth mindset will help us view failure as something positive. The fourth thing is accept failure as a sign of progress. So whether you're starting a business, going back to school, becoming a parent, or beginning to ride motorcycles, or whatever it is in your life that you are trying to do that is really on your heart, we must realize that we will all fail at some point eventually. Everyone does it. And that's really nothing to be ashamed of. We cannot float through life kicking goals and taking names 100% of the time. Life just doesn't work like that. But does failure feel uncomfortable? Absolutely. The reason it feels that way is because we're trying new things and we're pushing ourselves outside of our comfort zone. And this naturally produces that friction. And it's really just an organic thing that happens in the process of what we are trying to accomplish. I like to think of life as an ongoing process of trial and error and constant learning and growth. And this reminds me of when I started riding motorcycles, quite honestly. So at my first motorcycle safety class, I was stalling the engine constantly, which essentially means that the engine stops running because I either let the clutch out too quickly from first gear, or maybe I was going too slow for the gear that I was in. So it's super common, especially for new riders, but it was embarrassing because I was brand new. So I had a couple of moments where I was just like shaking my head, feeling so frustrated. But what I did was I started to work the clutch better and figure out why I was stalling. I started to experiment with holding the clutch in at different points when I was riding the motorcycle to see how far I could release the clutch before stalling out. And I would release it halfway and stall. I would release it 3/4 of the way and stall, rinse, repeat several times over. And after several rounds of this trial and error, I finally realized that the friction zone of the motorcycle I was riding was actually really short. So I only needed to release the clutch just a tiny bit to disengage the rear wheel, but keep the engine spinning, which was what we wanted. So each time I stalled the engine was technically a failure because I wasn't successfully keeping the motorcycle running. But in the process of doing this, I was actually learning with each iteration. And this trial and error method eventually led me to figure out the exact strategy of working with the clutch, and I eventually passed my motorcycle safety class. If I'd stopped at that first sign of failure, I wouldn't have got my motorcycle license. I wouldn't have ridden thousands of miles or seen amazing places. I wouldn't have become a motorcycle coach or become a mindset coach. And I definitely would not be talking to you about this right now. Failure means you are learning, so keep going and never stop. Now, at this point in the video, I've shared how to identify your fear, how to figure out where your fear is coming from, how to overcome your fear, and how to reframe it to make it a positive influence in your life and something that we can actually use to help us. I invite you to comment below on which of these resonates most with you. I love hearing your feedback. And overcoming fear is only one way to get started riding motorcycles. So if you haven't already, sign up for my free guide on how to go from a non-rider to a badass biker babe, and I'll leave the description link in the description box below. If you need more help stepping into your power, then I invite you to check out my group coaching program, where I help women with everything they need to know to live the best life possible. Now, I post a ton of content about mindset and motorcycles to help women realize their full potential. So while you wait for my next video next week, make sure you watch these 2 videos on the screen now, and I promise they won't disappoint. As always, I want to say I love you and I deeply appreciate you. You have a wonderful day, a great week, and I'll see you in the next video.